Most people believe wealth is about how much money comes in each month. They assume a higher income automatically means a better, freer life. But quietly, all across America, there are people earning less who feel calmer, more secure, and more in control than those making twice as much. The difference isn't hustle, luck, or intelligence, it's where they are on the net worth timeline. What almost no one talks about is that wealth changes in stages, not all at once. Each stage rewires how decisions feel, how pressure shows up, and how much power money has over daily life. Miss one stage, and the next one never really works. Hit them in the right order, and everything, work, stress, and freedom, starts to feel different. This is the part most people get backwards. They chase lifestyle first, income second, and control last. But the people who quietly win flip that order entirely. Once those milestones are understood, money stops being confusing and starts becoming predictable. Net worth isn't about lifestyle. It's about control. Most people in America grow up believing that wealth looks like a certain lifestyle. Big houses, new cars, expensive vacations, and visible success become the scoreboard. But net worth quietly tells a different story, one that has nothing to do with appearances and everything to do with leverage over one's own life. It measures how many choices a person actually has when circumstances change. Income can disappear overnight, and lifestyles are fragile when they depend on constant cash flow. Net worth, on the other hand, acts like a buffer between someone and chaos. When savings, assets, and low obligations exist, decisions stop being reactive and start becoming intentional. Control shows up not as luxury, but as the ability to say no when something doesn't align. This is why two people earning the same salary can live radically different lives under the surface. One feels trapped despite high income, while the other feels calm and steady with far less flash. Net worth shifts the conversation from "what can I afford right now?" to "how much pressure does money have on my decisions?" And that question quietly sets the stage for the first major milestone. Milestone number 1. A positive net worth. Crossing from negative to positive net worth is less about the number and more about what it represents psychologically. For the first time, effort begins to translate into progress instead of merely plugging holes. Debt no longer grows faster than savings, and that alone changes how a person views the future. Momentum replaces anxiety, even if the margin is still small. At this stage, money stops feeling like a treadmill and starts feeling like a path. Each dollar saved or invested actually moves the needle forward, reinforcing the idea that discipline compounds just like money does. The shift is subtle but powerful because it teaches that control is possible through consistent behavior. This is often the first moment someone feels financially awake. What makes this milestone so important is that it builds trust with oneself. Small wins accumulate, confidence grows, and long-term thinking becomes easier. Even though the numbers may not look impressive yet, the direction matters more than the distance. And that direction is shaped almost entirely by the habits that get someone here in the first place. How most Americans reach the first milestone. For most Americans, reaching a positive net worth has nothing to do with clever strategies or sudden breakthroughs. It usually comes from doing a few unglamorous things well, over and over again. Spending less than what comes in creates the gap where progress can finally happen. That gap, even if small at first, becomes the foundation for everything else. Eliminating high-interest debt plays a central role here, because bad debt quietly works against every dollar earned. Credit cards, personal loans, and lifestyle financing create friction that keeps people stuck below zero. Paying these down doesn't feel exciting, but it removes a constant drag on momentum. Each balance reduced is less future income already spoken for. What's often misunderstood is that consistency matters far more than intensity at this stage. No hacks, no shortcuts, and no overnight wins are required. Just boring, repeatable basics done long enough to tip the scale. And once that scale tips, it opens the door to a very different kind of milestone. One where money itself starts doing some of the work. Milestone number 2. Assets begin to work without your labor. The second milestone arrives when income is no longer tied entirely to hours worked. Investments begin to generate returns on their own, whether through dividends, appreciation, or cash flow. This is often the first time money feels alive, doing something in the background instead of sitting still. Even small returns can feel transformative because they prove a new model is possible. At this stage, effort becomes front-loaded instead of constant. The work happens in researching, setting up systems, and making disciplined choices, not in endless repetition. Once assets are in place, time becomes an ally rather than a constraint. The realization that progress can continue during sleep or vacations quietly changes how people value their energy. What's important is that this milestone rarely feels dramatic in the moment. The numbers may still be modest, but the structure has changed permanently. A second engine has been added, and it compounds differently than wages ever could. That structural shift naturally leads to a deeper question about where effort is best spent going forward. Once assets begin producing returns, the role of work starts to change. Earning more hours of pay matters less than improving the quality and efficiency of what's owned. Attention shifts from maximizing effort to optimizing ownership. This is where many people realize that leverage beats labor over long periods of time. At this level, decisions become more strategic and less emotional. Instead of chasing every opportunity, people begin filtering for durability, scalability, and long-term alignment. A solid index fund, a well-run business, or a stable property starts to look more valuable than short bursts of high income. The mindset moves from "how much can I make" to "what can I own that grows without me?" This shift also introduces patience as a competitive advantage. Owning assets requires resisting the urge for constant action and validation. Progress can feel slow, even when it's working exactly as intended. And that patience sets the foundation for understanding why time, more than talent, defines the next milestone. Compounding is the quiet force that separates steady progress from exponential outcomes. It rewards time in the system, not brilliance or constant activity. Once assets are in place, growth begins stacking on top of growth, often in ways that aren't immediately visible. This is why early stages can feel slow, even when the math is working perfectly. Many people underestimate compounding because it doesn't provide quick feedback. The biggest gains show up later, long after the habits and decisions that caused them. Those who understand this stop interrupting the process and let time do its job. They realize that consistency plus patience often outperforms intelligence and effort combined. This understanding creates a calm confidence that looks almost boring from the outside. There's less urgency, fewer emotional swings, and more trust in long-term direction. While others react to short-term noise, compounding quietly widens the gap. And eventually, that widening gap leads to a milestone where money stops being a daily concern altogether. Milestone number 3. Partial financial independence. Partial financial independence begins when survival is no longer tied to the next paycheck. Basic expenses can be covered, at least temporarily, without active work. This changes the power dynamic between money and decision-making. Fear starts to loosen its grip, even if full freedom is still far away. At this stage, bad jobs lose their leverage, and bad decisions become easier to walk away from. Time can be used more intentionally, whether for learning, health, family, or better opportunities. The pressure to accept every offer fades, and boundaries become easier to enforce. Money stops shouting and starts whispering. What's subtle but important is how identity shifts here. People stop defining themselves purely by what they do for income. They begin thinking in terms of options instead of obligations. And once options exist, the meaning of wealth itself begins to look very different. At this point, wealth stops being about visible rewards and starts being about invisible freedom. The real benefit isn't excess consumption, but the ability to choose how time and energy are spent. Optionality means having multiple paths available instead of being locked into one. It shows up as flexibility, calm, and the absence of constant financial urgency. Luxury is often loud and temporary, while optionality is quiet and durable. Someone with true financial breathing room doesn't need to prove anything through spending. They can downshift when needed, take calculated risks, or wait patiently for better opportunities. The value lies in what can be avoided just as much as what can be pursued. This is where many people realize they were chasing the wrong symbols all along. The payoff isn't stuff, but peace of mind and control over one's future. Yet despite how powerful this stage is, very few ever reach it. And the reasons why become uncomfortably clear when looking at common patterns. Most people don't miss the third milestone because they lack intelligence or opportunity. They miss it because their money leaks away through patterns that feel normal and socially rewarded. Consumer debt quietly converts future freedom into present comfort, while lifestyle inflation absorbs every raise before it has a chance to compound. Progress stalls not from one bad decision, but from thousands of small, unquestioned ones. Impatience plays an equally damaging role. Many people abandon long-term strategies because the early results feel too slow or unimpressive. They chase visible wins, status symbols, or short-term excitement instead of durable value. In doing so, they trade optionality for validation, often without realizing the cost until years later. Status is the final trap because it disguises itself as success. Buying what looks impressive can feel like moving forward, even when net worth is standing still. The pressure to signal achievement keeps people locked into higher expenses and lower flexibility. And unless that mindset changes, the final milestone remains just out of reach. Across every milestone, the common thread isn't income level, education, or luck. It's the ability to think like an owner instead of a consumer. Owners focus on systems, long-term outcomes, and downside protection, while consumers focus on comfort and appearances. This mental shift quietly influences thousands of daily decisions. Staying rational matters just as much as staying disciplined. Emotional reactions to markets, spending, or comparisons can undo years of progress in moments. Those who advance learn to zoom out, ignore noise, and trust processes that work over decades, not days. Time becomes a partner rather than an enemy. What makes this mindset powerful is that it compounds beyond money. It shapes how people approach careers, relationships, and risk. Small, patient decisions accumulate into disproportionate outcomes. And once this way of thinking is internalized, progress doesn't stop at a milestone. It becomes a permanent trajectory. By this point, it's clear that net worth isn't a scoreboard for success. It's a framework for control. Each milestone quietly removes pressure, expands options, and shifts how decisions feel in everyday life. The people who reach them don't do anything extraordinary. They just stay patient, think long-term, and resist the urge to trade freedom for short-term comfort. Over time, those choices add up to a life with fewer forced decisions and more intentional ones. The real question isn't where someone is today, but whether their habits are moving them closer to the next milestone or keeping them stuck in place. Are the choices being made designed for appearance or for control? Are assets being built quietly in the background? Or is everything dependent on constant effort? These are the questions that separate motion from progress. If this way of thinking challenges how money has been approached so far, that's a good sign. Stay curious, stay patient, and keep learning how ownership changes outcomes. Subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and keep moving forward. Because the most powerful shifts rarely happen overnight, but they do happen with consistency.